Are we good, Dr. Adam?
2 seconds. Okay. There, wrong. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Just
a pleasant good afternoon to each and every one of you. My name is His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Devon Bannister. I am the president and founder for MACBAN Arts. I am your host today. Let me take this opportunity to say welcome to each and every one of you to this, the Commission for Social Development 60th Session. This is our side event that is hosted, by the Irene Menakaya schools, as well as the African Cultural Production. We want to say thank you very much to our partners, such as the Center for SDG Education USA and the MACBAN Arts organization as well. Let me take this time as well to say thank you very much to these our wonderful speakers that we have here that will be speaking to us today on this very, very, very important topic. You know, in 2030, in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted at the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit in 2015, it is recognized that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development. So member states pledged to leave no one behind in the implementation of the agenda and to endeavor to reach the farthest behind. So with 8 years left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the coronavirus disease, which is also known as the COVID-19 crisis, has disrupted efforts to achieve many of the goals by 2030, including Goal 1, ending poverty in all its forms everywhere, and Goal 2, end hunger, achieve food security, and improved nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. So it has exacerbated pre-existing inequalities and multiple forms of deprivation, and also disrupted agri-food systems and drastically curtailed economic activity, resulting in devastating effects on rural and urban livelihoods and the well-being of millions. So, as the global community remain uncertain about the COVID-19 pandemic, countries still being forced into new lockdowns. The education system at all levels failed to produce quality and inclusive education. Cognitive, affective, and psychomotor learning are yet to be included in the growing trend of the new normals in schools. So stakeholders in education across the world are continuing to draw attention to the immense value of education, families and communities, national development, not to speak of the United Nations Decade of Actions, especially with respect to eradicating poverty and ending hunger. The entire well-being of human race is affected with high increase on poverty rate and hunger. The 60th session of the Commission on Social Development team is Inclusive Resilience, Recovery from COVID-19 for Sustainable Livelihoods, Well-being and Dignity for All. I will repeat that. Inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity for all. Eradicating poverty and hunger in all its forms and dimensions to achieve the 2030 agenda is intended to be a wake-up call to make education systems more resilient to crisis and more inclusive, flexible, and sustainable to innovation, to the expansion of new frontiers and learning possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have an interesting discussion that will be taking place here today. We have some wonderful speakers who will touch on various points and various areas. But before I ask the speakers to speak, the very first one, I want to play a remarks from the chair of the Bureau for the Commission for Social Development and the 60th Session. So let me cue it in here. Now it is in a different language, but the subtitles will be at the bottom that you can follow.
Dr. No volume.
Encontrarán la erradicación del hambre y la pobreza. En efecto, en el contexto de la pandemia de COVID-19, millones de personas enfrentan la pobreza extrema y la inseguridad alimentaria. La Comisión de Desarrollo Social se ha vuelto más útil que nunca para comprender los problemas que afectan a los grupos más vulnerables. El tema emergente se centrará en políticas y medidas nacionales para combatir el hambre y la pobreza, con el fin de que se compartan buenas prácticas y surjan oportunidades para la cooperación internacional. En esta sesión tenemos la oportunidad de fortalecer la solidaridad mundial y lograr resultados concretos. Debemos trabajar juntos en un nuevo contrato social en el que todos los individuos tengan las mismas oportunidades. Muchas gracias. Los esperamos en la próxima sesión de la Comisión de Desarrollo Social.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I would like to, at this time, introduce our first speaker, Sharon Doctor, who is the Ambassador of Missions of Argentina to the United Nations.
No.
I think
the Ambassador of Mission of Argentina to UN is the chair that made the remarks, please.
Sharon,
thanks for the appointment. You're handing it over to me. Thank you so much. Maybe one
Please
day.
unmute your mic.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can be heard. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. So good afternoon. Thank you so much for that introduction. So my name is Sharon Doctor, and it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I am the founder of Valentius LLC, which is a healthcare consultancy company. Again, it is a pleasure to be with you today. I would like to thank you, Dr. Ada, for the opportunity to speak on this distinguished panel. I would also like to thank the delegates, any dignitaries we have, and all of the audience for joining us. Just a bit about Valentius. We Our services include project management. We focus on social impact programs, and we also focus on facilitating staff development trainings for healthcare workers. So our mission is to really help companies and the employees awaken to their greatest potential and bring forth their unique capabilities. I will be sharing in a moment a PowerPoint. I'm going to actually, as I talk, I'm going to share my screen and share my screen, put that in presentation view. Can you see my screen at this time? Okay. Great. You can see my screen. Great. Great. So today's theme of building an inclusive and resilient education for children during crisis is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Today, I will share some key points from my mentor, Daisaku Ikeda. Daisaku Ikeda's 2021 peace proposal, in which he talks about education for children in crisis. Daisaku Ikeda is the president of the Soka Gakkai International, which is an organization that promotes peace, culture, and education in society. It is our belief that protecting the human rights and the future development of the next generation is the cornerstone of creating a sustainable global society. You know, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I've seen how her education was disrupted and interrupted during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And she experienced a lot of anxiety. So during this brief presentation, or during this brief dialogue, I should say, I'm going to touch on the key points. One would be the social and educational impact of COVID-19. Also, an integrated policy and financial framework. And then I always like to talk about solutions, such as innovative financing for educational programs, and then also looking ahead to some future opportunities. So first and foremost, I just want to say, in terms of the social and educational impact of COVID-19, in 2020, right before the pandemic hit, more than 104 million children and young people were deprived of an education as a result of conflict and then disaster. And then again, COVID hit. However, less than 2% of humanitarian funding was allocated to that particular area. You know, I want to add that education has conventionally been accorded less importance in relief activities than the food and medical supplies needed for survival. And even after the recovery phase has begun, education has always been one of the last areas to receive education. UNICEF emphasizes that the role of schools, the roles of schools really play an important and safe children for them to reclaim their daily lives. So spending time with friends at schools and basically schools offer children the psychological support to start healing from traumatic experiences and growing up in a conflict and disaster zone. And for many people who are, experienced death with COVID, that those were like disastrous, traumatic experiences for them. Nationwide, the fourth bullet point, nationwide, an estimated 3 million vulnerable students, those who are homeless and foster care, many have disabilities, or are non-native English speakers, appear not to be in school at all. So in regards to an integrated policy and financial framework, you may know, we're going to share these slides, but you may know that I'm not going to read word for word verbatim. Off of each slide, I will highlight some key points, and I will add, just be able to articulate some additional information on each of the particular slides. So I wanted to use this opportunity to shift and talk about an organization called Education Cannot Wait, because it's one of the first initiative of its kind dedicated to education in emergencies and crises. I also think that Education Can't Wait is a great example of the global community collaborating together to create policy and leveraging financial resources. So in essence, Education Can't Wait was established during the World Humanitarian Summit in 2016 by international humanitarian and development aid actors, along with public and private donors, to really help reposition education as a priority on the humanitarian agenda. So with that, Education Can't Wait has 5 strategic objectives as of 2020. The first objective is to inspire political support. The second is to inspire financing. The third is to improve joint planning and a timely response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The fourth is to strengthen capacity to respond. And the fifth strategic objective was to improve data, evidence, and accountability. And so with that said, I believe that really enhancing your organizations or our strategic partnerships is key in the year 2022 and beyond. And with that, Education Can't Wait has maintained its funding performance since 2016 to present. And they were able to mobilize $91.9 million in 2022 for a total of $684.5 million through its from the inception of the organization, which I find very impressive. So on this dashboard, Education Can't Wait, and this is a dashboard. I always like graphics, right? So this is a dashboard from 2021, and I just wanted to highlight that, and as of 2021, 29.2 million children were reached, and 51% of those children were girls. And approximately 14,000 classrooms were supported with educational supplies and products. What's not on this dashboard, but I wanted to share with you that $45.4 million were approved for 32 countries to respond to the COVID pandemic. And 75% of these funds were dispersed at a record speed of 8 weeks, which I think speaks to the importance of this issue, but there was definitely not a lot of less bureaucracy, I should say. And, now I want to segue and talk about some innovative financing mechanisms and just really provide a brief example of some financing mechanisms that some countries have used. And so I just talked about building those strategic partnerships. That's going to be key. And when we're talking about leveraging financial opportunities to fund our programs. One example I want to mention is the International Solidarity Levy. And basically, it's a global tax that aims to realize a fair global society. So in essence, it is a system that imposes taxes on global goods and activities with the intent to reduce the negative impact of, let's say, COVID-19, which is what we're talking about. So this process, this tax, aims to redistribute worldwide wealth, regulate financial speculation, and more so democratize international organizations as well. Another example that I just want to touch on or highlight is Unite Life, which it was set up 6 years ago. And again, the purpose was to fight chronic childhood malnutrition. But I mentioned this because This organization was created by UN Women and other organizations, other partners, to leverage innovation and partnerships to protect human capital. And more so, this organization really served as a hub, and it enabled businesses across various sectors to shape sustainable solutions. So basically to pull their financial resources as well. And another organization, it's called the Education Commission for Global Initiative. It's a global initiative. And they had I reviewed this recent report that was titled The Roaring 20s, Educating the COVID-19 Generation. And in essence, that my takeaway from that report was that we need to that aid to education is not going to necessarily fill the gap, especially from basically the countries funding themselves. So if we have from the Ministry of Education in a country that's war-torn or impacted with COVID, they're not going to have the funds. So we're going to need more innovative, or we're going to have to really explore additional options for leveraging private sources of finance. So it's like, who's your strategic partner, and how do we continue to collaborate with the private sector? Okay. And so looking ahead, I always like to end, of course, with hope. And also there's additional funding opportunities. And during this, brief conversation or brief talk, I've talked about strategic partnerships and how it's going to be so important beyond 2022 to leverage those opportunities. Education Can't Wait announced a total of $91.7 million in grant financing. I think that's awesome for some resilience programs in Bangladesh, Burundi, Lebanon, Libya, Pakistan, and Sudan. Last month, this year, Geneva also announced in US, but there's going to be $228.3 million in new additional funding for Education Can't Wait. So I ended with the funding opportunities because, we have lots of work to do. COVID was one pandemic. Who knows what the next pandemic will be in the year 2030, the year 2025. But we know that we have these programs, Education Can't Wait, and such programs like that exist. So, my recommendation is always finding out, so who, of course, the ministries of government, but are there any other organizations that are tapping into these resources and these grant funding opportunities, and how do we, as maybe smaller NGOs, can collaborate and begin to fund our programs and some community-based educational programs during crisis. So again, thank you. And I enjoyed talking with you this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Doctor, just to let everyone know, we made a mistake there. It was an unforeseen mistake. So please, she is not the ambassador to Argentina, to the UN. Just to clarify that, we don't want any problem with the ambassador of Argentina. We don't want any problem with Argentina. But nevertheless, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sharon, Doctor, for such a wonderful presentation. Just to let everyone know, we have the Q&A section. So just in the chat there, you can go and you can put your questions. And at the end of everyone's presentation is where the speakers will be able to answer all questions. So if you have any questions in the Q&A section, please type your questions and we will answer it at the end. Coming to speak to us next on utilizing education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19, sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity in communities. Ladies and gentlemen, after spending several years in the law field, Dr. Anne-Marie Armstrong shifted her focus to the world of education. She has spent over 35 years working as a teacher, an administrator, and a consultant in secondary, post-secondary, and alternative education programs. She is currently the Associate Director for Academic Services at the Educational Opportunity Center for Farmingdale State College. Coming to speak to us now is Dr. Anne-Marie Armstrong. Dr. Anne-Marie, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I want to truly thank the Commission for Social Development and all the organizers of this event for inviting me to speak with you on this very important issue. It's my hope that my brief comments will strike a chord in each of you and provide you with the impetus to effectuate change in your own communities. The COVID-19 pandemic undoubtedly changed and will continue to change the world we live in. Each country, each community, each individual has been touched by its far-reaching implications. There have been devastating effects to families, communities, businesses, and education. But we are a resilient people, and we will recover. And now, as some sense of normalcy returns, we must begin to free ourselves from the hold of the pandemic. We have no choice but to move forward. However, it is how we move forward that is crucial to our recovery. We must pool resources, focus on the immediate, look toward the future, and work together to heal ourselves, our community, and our world. As a result of the vastness of the impact of the pandemic, there are a multitude of avenues that must be traveled on our road to recovery. Today, we're focusing on the role of education and its power to propel us toward a brighter future. To inform both our discussion and the direction that education must take, we must first examine how we arrived at this specific place and time. So according to the 2021 McKinsey report, the pandemic accelerated a previously existing trend in global movement toward remote work, e-commerce, and automation. Furloughs, lost jobs, a work from home mentality, the delineation of essential versus non-essential workers, and new protocols regulating the physical aspect of our work have all contributed to our new focus on remote business and the virtual marketplace. This acceleration led to the probability of 25% more workers than previously anticipated needing to change occupations by 2030. These workers, estimated at approximately 100 million in number, will need new and more advanced skills to secure employment. The most disadvantaged of these workers will therefore need to make the biggest transitions. Until now, governments have valiantly waged a war against the impact of the pandemic. Money has been pumped into the economies worldwide to assist maintaining some level of financial security and dignity. And as a short-term remedy, these measures did prove helpful and even somewhat effective. However, the long-term impact of the pandemic cannot be rectified by such stopgap measures. Attention must now be paid to refocusing our efforts and realigning our practices to ensure that we are capable of thriving in our new normal. Forbes magazine has identified several industries which will experience tremendous growth in the years ahead. The need for healthcare workers will increase as new variants of the COVID-19 virus emerge and the enduring effects of the virus begin to reveal themselves. There will be a need for medical technicians, researchers, and analysts to assist in our continued response to both the expected and unexpected medical consequences of the virus. In the technology sector, we will experience an increased demand for artificial intelligence engineers, robotics experts, and computer scientists as the world moves towards increased use of video conferencing, online collaborative platforms, e-commerce, and cryptocurrency, originally spurred on by the pandemic, but apparently here to stay. This need will be seen comprehensively, from tech giants to innovative startups. And as businesses and individuals continue to move online, IT security and software development will become high priority. Another field which will experience exponential growth in the near future is that of renewable energy. There will be a tremendous need for designers, efficiency consultants, sales representatives, and technicians, particularly in the area of wind turbines. And finally, as pandemic restrictions are lifted, it is expected that the travel and entertainment industry will rebound, leaving a multitude of employment opportunities even at the entry level. It's anticipated that the demand in each of these fields will far surpass the supply of suitable candidates. And so we must begin to look to education and revamp its infrastructure as a long-term recovery for our long-term solution to our recovery. And to ensure this inclusive, resilient, sustainable recovery, we'll need to begin to reskill and upskill the existing workforce, the currently unemployed, and those who are employed in jobs that may quickly become obsolete. We must enhance and augment workforce development to connect people to the jobs that are needed now. Our first step in the process must be a critical evaluation of the particular needs of our nations, our communities, and our citizens. Needs will be different across the globe. However, there are commonalities in practices, no matter who and where we are, which will assist us all on the road to recovery. Our primary initiative must be to refocus our efforts away from monetary assistance and toward educating and retraining the workforce. First, we must be responsive to the needs of the employers in our area to ensure that our displaced and our unemployed local workers can reintegrate into the job market. For that, we need to develop a strong and continuous dialogue with community partners and continually reevaluate and modify our educational efforts. Second, we must attend to the needs of the current workforce. Studies indicate that the young are more affected than the old, females were more affected than males, foreign more than native-born, and those without a college degree more than those who possess one. We must capitalize on the interests and the strengths of these groups, improving their skills to make them employable once again. For the newest members of our workforce whose job searches were severely hindered by COVID-19, we must quickly attend to their reassimilation. Links to the labor market and the education system must be maintained to prevent the pandemic from permanently damaging their careers, their drive, and their enthusiasm. For individuals facing extreme financial hardship, which is particularly true of low and mid-skilled workers, we see the emergence of a work-first mentality, meaning that they need to secure employment before thinking about anything else. To assist these individuals, educational programs should consider offering training and certification in stackable credentials. Those post-secondary certificates will allow these workers to secure employment immediately, progress on a career path, and enhance their employment prospects in the future. Therefore, these stackables represent both an immediate ease from financial hardship and an important buffer against future displacement. Additionally, our educational efforts should focus on those business sectors with visible job ladders, which allow an entry-level employee to move up in the field or organization. Educators should seek out partnerships with these companies with published job ladders, train students for entry-level positions, and entice them with the possibility of future advancement. And finally, we must not ignore the strong indication that much of our labor growth will occur in high-level jobs. Thus, we also need to develop and foster advanced skills in those currently employed in highly impacted fields. This will require more rigorous levels of education and training, but it will continue to empower our workforce. As low and mid-level employees move up the career ladder, they will make way for the advancement of those on the rungs below them. All educational arenas must shift away from providing the obsolete and redundant skills and move toward educating and retraining the workforce to meet current demands. However, this type of directed focus, a focus on the here and the now, will not be enough in the long run. We must look toward the future and allow education to play a role in creating sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity from the very beginning. Curriculum at the primary level must be adapted to incorporate workforce development targeted for future and increase the digital literacy and digital problem-solving skills, which will span the global marketplace. Introductions must be made to new and innovative career choices to drive the very young down paths that will lead them to employability and financial stability. High schools must continue to develop new and innovative programs targeted at providing the base level skills necessary for future careers. This should include the reintroduction of vocational coursework in alignment with current marketplace trends. Higher education must reevaluate programming and course offerings to support the careers of the future and to promote employability among their graduates. Now, this urgent and widespread need for retraining will also come with the need for those capable of delivering this type of instruction. And what better source than those who have demonstrated longevity in their fields? In this way, outgoing workers can continue to feel productive and essential while supporting the growth and development of the next generation as we move from the pandemic toward a brighter future. The only way to ensure inclusive and shared recovery from the pandemic is to move our recovery focus away from monetary measures and toward an investment in human capital. Education and educators are uniquely positioned to prepare the current and future workforce for the changes and challenges that lie ahead. To assist the redirection of workforce education, we must focus on our global, national, and local needs. We must begin with that which is immediately necessary without losing sight of the future. We must, at the heart of our efforts, target the needs of those most acutely impacted by the pandemic, but continue to consider those who will be our future workforce. We must share our findings, both our successes and our failures, as we strive to return to pre-pandemic prosperity. We must let education lead the way. Thank you for your time. It was truly my pleasure being here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Armstrong. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was well put together. I know a lot of questions will be coming your way. Someone might even ask if you would like to be the Secretary of Education for the country or a country. You never know. But thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. I can see from the response of your colleagues here, and as well as from those who are attending as well, their response, it's wonderful. So thank you. Please stick around because we know a lot of questions will be coming your way. For those of you that are now joining us, this is our side event to the Commission on Social Development 60th Session. The team is utilizing education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity in communities. Our next speaker is Dr. Ian S Levine. He is a Peace Ambassador representing Word of Life Ministries International, also known as WOLMI, at the United Nations in Geneva. He is also the founder and CEO of Levine Neuro Coaching Limited, and it uses the principles of self-talk and neuroscience to educate and empower others to function at the highest level of their human potential. Dr. Levine continues to be a featured guest speaker for various organizations across the globe and is also pleased to support the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, of the United Nations. Ambassador Levine resides in the Cayman Islands with his wife, Salita, and their 3 daughters. I hope I pronounced your wife's name correct, please. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to speak to us now is Ambassador Dr. Ian S. Levine. Dr. Levine, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Bannister. Greetings to you, sir, and also greetings to the distinguished panels of ambassadors. I am so grateful that we have this global opportunity to speak to all of you here on this forum today. And I'll be sharing my slide. when we normally speak, sometimes we speak about the live theater. And when we speak about the live theater, we are simply saying that once we are alive, anything can happen. So first, I want to make sure that you can hear me loud and clear, and that you can also see the slide, not loud and clear, but clear and clear.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear, clear and clear.
Thank you. So utilizing education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity for all, especially eradicating poverty and hunger in all its forms. There is indeed a global mandate. At the World Summit for Social Development, world leaders recognize the significance of social development and human well-being for all, and pledge to eradicate poverty, promote full and productive employment, and foster social integration and inclusion to achieve stable, safe, and just societies for all. And I took that from the General Assembly Resolution S24/2. Therefore, we see that investing in human capacities and basic infrastructure will therefore form the basis of this brief presentation. So in essence, we are speaking today on my brief presentation on investing in human capacities and basic infrastructure. Investing in human capacities. Building human capacities will play an integral role in utilizing education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity for all, eradicating poverty and hunger in all its forms. And we must understand here that when human capacities are established, individuals will become upskilled. I remember that the entire theme of this is how we can use the model of education, how we can utilize education with what we are trying to achieve. So we see that when human capacities are established, that individuals will become upskilled. And as you know, naturally that when an individual or when individuals become upskilled, this will naturally translate into several things. Number one, there is going to be greater creativity, and there is going to be a great level of employability, thus leading to a more productive workforce. So we see in the scheme of all of this that education is critically important. And as we speak from the realm of education, it's important that we look at education in its totality. Education starting not just from the tertiary level, the university level, but education actually starting from the early childhood education level. And that's the critical formative years where education should be the focus of education. And we can be assured that once that foundation is solid, the early childhood education is solid, from early childhood education to primary education to secondary education up to tertiary and university education, that the goals of what we are trying to achieve will become more sustainable. So we see that upskill persons, upskill and upskilled individual, you're going to become greater in your level of creativity, you're going to be more employable, and naturally, as we said here earlier, it means that the entire workforce will become more productive. When this is achieved, individuals are naturally positioned to enhance their livelihood. And we know without a shadow of a doubt that one of the best ways to improve livelihood is through education. And once you have that quality education, you will have a better economic earning. You become more employable. And when you become more employable, when you have more skills, you're able to do more. Hopefully your financial standing should increase and you'll be able to contribute more to yourself, to your families, and to your societies. So we see that when this is achieved, that individuals are positioned to enhance their livelihood, which can inevitably enhance a couple things. Number one, their self-esteem, drive, level of social responsibility, and overall quality of life. Additionally, there are other factors which also play a vital role when considering investing in human capacities, such as access to quality education and skills training. And the operative word there is quality. So we're just not merely speaking about having education, but that level of education must be quality education. That level of education must be quality skill training. We must also understand that education just doesn't stop within the classroom, but education is a lifelong process. Education is a lifelong experience. So after you go through college and university and your postgraduate training, continuous education through personal and professional development should be a part of our personal mandate. So we see that you are going to increase your level, having that access to quality education and skills training, having access to healthcare services, having IT skills and access to technology such as, you know what, smartphones and computers, which usage and importance greatly expanded throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. So in terms of education, although this may seem a bit minute and insignificant to many, the importance of having those IT skills, we've seen it in COVID, and we're also seeing it here right now where we're interfacing via Zoom. With you, the panel here, with you, the audience here, and by virtue with the entire world. So when we are speaking about education and when we are speaking about utilizing education in terms of having that level of quality education, well-being, dignity for all, eradicating poverty and hunger, it also means that we must have that level of IT skills, and those skills are extremely important. If we never had those skills back in 2019, we see how important having that level of IT expertise. And when I say expertise, we're not speaking about having a degree in IT, but having that foundational knowledge, how to maneuver the global space in terms of technology. And as I said before, we saw that within COVID, that the usage of cell phones and technology has grown exponentially. Overall then, when individuals are empowered, or better yet, making this a bit more personal to all of us, when you are empowered and upskilled through the building of human capacities, individuals are enhanced on a personal and professional development level. So this speaks to continuous education through personal and professional development. Such individuals are therefore more likely to become financially independent, and naturally, you know, when you become financially independent, the chances of eradicating poverty and hunger, the chances are greater. So individuals become financially independent. And when you're upskilled in terms of education, when you are upskilled in terms of new information and new knowledge, individuals are more empowered with critical thinking skills, creative thinking skills, and decision-making skills, which are all necessary for creating strategies and solutions to support this initiative toward eradicating poverty and hunger, and geared toward creating sustainable livelihood and dignity for all. Education within this day and age can never be minimized. As we have seen here, that the more educated we are, the more educated you are, we become better critical thinkers, we become better creative thinkers, our decision-making skills are enhanced. And once those skills are enhanced, we are better able to formulate solutions and strategies in order to eradicate poverty and hunger for all humanity. Investing in basic human infrastructure. Investing in basic human infrastructure. As we see here, that investing in basic infrastructure is also critical within this space of what we're dealing with. What can be done? So as we spoke about education, and now as we are speaking about investing in basic infrastructure. So what can be done? Number one, we're looking at quality healthcare. We're just not speaking about healthcare. It's easy to speak about healthcare, but we're speaking about quality healthcare. Investing in quality healthcare systems and ensuring that individuals across the world, individuals globally, that those individuals have access to affordable primary health care. This within itself is a very strong foundation and important mandate for combating poverty and inequality. Accessing quality health care, and you would realize that I am stressing on quality. Accessing quality healthcare should not cause an individual to experience financial hardship, but should be as such care which is financially feasible for all. So naturally, once again, when a person is better educated, when a community is better educated, when a nation is better educated, your income should be better. And the better income that you have, you'll be able to support these initiatives globally, just not within your space, just not within your various jurisdictions, but globally. So affordable healthcare should therefore reduce the financial worries and mental stress of individuals seeking to have access to such healthcare. So therefore, healthcare should be so affordable that an individual who cannot afford healthcare can have access to quality healthcare. It therefore remains incumbent upon governments, your government, my government, to enact the necessary healthcare laws and insurance laws which will protect and allow citizens, especially those of lower income status, to ably access quality and affordable healthcare if or when needed. That's number one, investing in quality healthcare. Number two, investing in mental health. And we know throughout the COVID, mental health has been the quote unquote the buzzword, but watch what we're saying here right now. According to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. It sounds like a mouthful. You know, sometimes when we think about mental health, we're just thinking about mental focus or mental resilience. But we see that when a person is engaged with mental health, he or she is able to lead a productive life, and he or she is able to add invaluable contributions to his or her community. It has been noted in the report of the Secretary General that mental health is critical to people's ability to lead a productive life, yet it is often overlooked. So although within this COVID pandemic from 2020 until now, where we've been hearing lots of training and strategies and seminars concerning mental health, we see clearly here what has been said from the Secretary General, that the whole aspect of mental health has been overlooked. It is therefore necessary that effective laws and sufficient resources be put in place as an investment towards mental health interventions and strategies for citizens globally. And how do we do this? We do this by education. How do we do this? We do this by finances. How do we do this? We do this by having the appropriate laws in order to enact, in order to create those level of strategies and solutions. Investing in basic infrastructure. Number 3, investing in human resources. And this is extremely critical. And when I saw this statistics, it was like, is this actually a reality? Investing in human resources. It has been noted that by the year 2030, and you know when 2030 is, we are currently in 2022, and 2030 is just 8 years away. So it has been noted that by the year 2030, 2030, that the world, watch this carefully, that the world will need over 18 million, not 8 million, not 1 million, but the world, the entire globe will need over 18 million additional health workers, especially in low or lower middle income countries. So we see that our level of education has to be poured into equipping our healthcare resources, our healthcare workers. And we know where the healthcare workers, we know that tier from the very bottom to the very top. It means that those who work in the medical technology field need to be upskilled, doctors need to be upskilled, nurses need to be upskilled, those in phlebotomy need to be upskilled, those, the secretaries, every tier within the healthcare industry, every tier, there will be the dire need for all of those persons to be upskilled. For as we have seen here, for by 2030, the world will need 18 million additional healthcare workers. My question is, are we ready for that? My question is our educational system ready for that? And those workers will be needed, especially as we see here in the low to lower middle income countries. Therefore, nations worldwide should therefore collaborate their efforts in upskilling staff within the healthcare industry in order to meet this imminent global demand, which is only 8 years away. 8 years away may seem like 8 years away, but we know that we are already in the month of February 2022, and this year is going by so quickly. And we know that 8 years will be here sooner than we think. Are we ready for these levels of responsibilities? In conclusion, as governments and nations seek strategies and solutions towards the theme of this presentation, utilizing education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity for all, eradicating poverty and hunger in all its forms, it is absolutely important that we do not only strategize within our respective jurisdictions. In other words, it's just not about where I live. It's just not about where you live. It's just not about our own personal space, our own personal country, our own personal jurisdiction, but rather for the greater good of humanity and also for the greater good of the less fortunate and disenfranchised, that we collaborate our efforts, whereby that by the year 2030, we will see the world in a better place through the fulfillment of this mandate of the United Nations. This great work has started towards this mandate. Therefore, together, we can make a difference globally. If you're ready to join myself and Dr. Bannister and Dr. Okika and all the other panelists here, if you are ready to join the mandate within your various countries, within your own private space, just raise your hand. Once again, the great work has started towards this mandate. Therefore, together, we can make a difference globally. My question as I close is, are you ready to make that difference? My time is up and I thank you for yours. Your Excellency, Dr. Bannister, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Ambassador Dr. Levine. I raise both hands. I won't raise one, I raise both hands. Thank you very much for that, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just to remind everyone, for those of you that may have any question, please remember to go to the Q&A section and input your questions there. We have a few questions already. So after our next speaker, we will address the questions. So Her Excellency Angela Isaac Lawrence is a mother of 3 boys. For over 17 years, she has been a legal assistant to one of the top law firms in New York. She is a member of the firm's diversity team and serves as the staff diversity representative. She serves as a chaplain in her local community of Brooklyn, New York. She currently serves on the leadership team of her church as a secretary and treasurer and the president of the Women's Ministry. Her Excellency Angela has been honored with the Presidential Volunteers Award for her volunteer services and contributions to Caribbean Girls Missions of Hope. She is the Vice President of Caribbean Girl Missions of Hope. So coming to speak to us is Her Excellency Angela Isaac from the Caribbean Girls Missions of Hope. Over to you, Her Excellency.
Thank you, Dr. Bannister. Distinguished panelists, thank you for having me this evening. I am grateful to be here representing Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope. As Dr. Bannister said, my name is Angela Lawrence. I hope you can hear me clearly. And I have a slight cough, so excuse me ahead of time. Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope we are just pleased to be here to share what we are doing to utilize education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in May of 2020. The pandemic called us to jump into action. And it was started by and founded by Her Excellency Ambassador Rhonda Ben Valerio. Our mission at Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope is to help anyone who may feel hopeless by providing and alleviating hardship, by delivering high quality service, including but not limited to food, clothing, education above all, and counseling services. Not long after the COVID-19 pandemic, our organization partnered with shelters, local shelters, and international shelters for homeless young children and shelters for battered women and children escaping domestic violence. Our goal in partnering with these shelters was to promote women's equality and advancement through education, leadership, self-awareness training, and counseling programs as a part of their successful transition back into society. We've done so with numerous women so far, and we are really pleased with the reports that we're getting from those young ladies. The COVID-19 pandemic really elevated our awareness that classrooms are constantly changing and evolving as learning becomes dependent on technology. The COVID-19 pandemic largely and negatively affected education globally, especially in the underserved communities that we support. In response to this awareness, Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope started an initiative to supply technology to support remote learning. We provided computers, school supplies, and over 200 tablets to underserved communities in Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica. This initiative helped many children attend virtual classes, and many were able to complete and submit their assignments. I mean, a lot of these children had no means of even reaching a teacher. The ones that did not have internet access had a phone, but they couldn't connect in that way. And the ones who actually had the internet access had no way, had no device to get that. And that's getting internet from a neighbor or someone down the street, or even like a shop close by. So particularly in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a family of 6. She has 6 children, and they relied on her cell phone to attend their virtual classes. So when she leaves for work, whatever they're able to accomplish in the morning, that's what was done. And when she comes in the evening, again, and they're sharing the one phone, providing they have good internet access. So we were able to provide them with 3 laptops in that family, and they were able to complete their assignments and attend their classes. In Guyana, we had one young man, we've sent several tablets to Guyana, but we had one particular young man who was in danger of not graduating from secondary school because he did not have the technology and they had no internet access. So Caribbean Girls jumped on that, and we provided tablets to him and pay for internet services so that family, so that he was able to graduate high school, and he will be going to university later this year. So we are pleased by that. The Global Fund for Children published an article in February of 2021, which stated that more than 1.6 billion students in over 190 countries have already experienced disruptions to their education, and 24 million children and youth, including more than 11 million girls, may drop out permanently due to the pandemic. We need to do something about that. The rapid global shift to online learning has also intensified the digital divide, because 2/3 of school-age children worldwide have no access to internet at home and are unable to attend virtual classes. I mean, I saw that firsthand with neighbors in my mother's community in Guyana, where the children, school is in session. There's no school, the teachers will have to work. The parents have to go to meet the teacher at some point to receive the packages, because then they have no device to get the work online. So, everyone, the neighborhoods, people were pitching in, local businesses were pitching in to print materials for the children so that they can attend classes or get that work done. So in addition to our initiative to supply the technology to support remote learning, Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope launched the HOPE program in Guyana in August of 2021. The program currently has 6 candidates. The HOPE program, it's designed to train and empower young men and women in their respective communities. We partnered them with local business owners, tradesmen, and women. This program provides on-the-job training in block making, cosmetology, and electrical maintenance certification. So once they're done, we partner with the Guyana government so we can get, for the electrical maintenance students, they can get certified. So when they're done with the program, they're able to go out and work independently. As maintainers, they can work independently, and if they want to do more extensive work, they have to work under a licensed electrician. So those students also we are implementing a program where we can fund for them to be able to go ahead and get to that license. So also for our block making and our cosmetology students, upon their completion, they'll be able to be skilled enough to go and work, open their own little business, because we want them to be sustainable. We want them to be able to be, bring into their community value, give them that financial independence so they won't be so dependent. Not like America, Guyana does not have that, or the Caribbean doesn't have that much where the government will help you, assist you in certain aspects of life. So we are setting them up so they can be independent and financially stable. So subsequent to our HOPE program, Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope, in partnership with Grace is Enough, the Enough organization hosted by Lady Grace Ann Johnson, we host a free empowerment program for young women and men called the Enough You. This international virtual program runs in 10-week sessions. It offers coaching and training, mentorship while in the program and after, self-development skills to help them navigate life, school, and workforce. They are given tools, journals, and resources that puts them above their class, shift their mindset from the limitations of culture and society limitations and their society situations. The program also offers an entrepreneur 4-week training. This training covers an initial item to structure the business and provide tools, guides and resources to help our youths get to the next level of owning and operating their own businesses. So in our efforts, our continued efforts to utilize education during the pandemic, Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope partnered with Regenerating Lives Ministries and the First International Library to plant libraries around the Caribbean. In August, again, 2021, the first library was planted in the Children's Family Center. That's a shelter in Sophia, Guyana. The library was designed to benefit both children and adults. The library consists of reading area, a small computer lab, and a classroom for after-school programs. Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope works with local tradesmen and women who are willing to volunteer, and we are so grateful for our volunteers. They volunteer their time and services to offer classes in sewing, carpentry, and cooking. We are also working on getting someone who would be able to teach them IT, because that is necessary right now. We also offer homework help and counseling services in our location. Dr. Bannister, can I ask you to share this video, please? Thank you. This video just shows a little of what we're doing, some of the people that are in our programs, and how we are working with them, some of the things that we've done to promote education in our local communities. Our volunteers are busy going out, handing out tablets to those who need it the most, to our orphanages, our shelters, just local people in our communities. That young lady she's in our electrical maintenance certification program, and we are very proud of her. She's worked very hard to accomplish her certification. And some of our students who are also going through our Grace is Enough, our Enough Academy, are products from our HOPE program. So we are setting them up to come into society, productive and contributing. Okay. To conclude, Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope is reimagining a whole new life for our young people by implementing programs such as the HOPE program, the technology to support remote learning initiative, the Enough You Academy, and the planting of libraries. Our goal is that once the pandemic subsides, our youths will be skilled and well prepared to confidently integrate back into society and into the job market. The COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 and 2021 devastatedly affected the education of our young people around the world. Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope will continue to support vulnerable individuals and families who have lost their livelihood, resources, and financial stability. The pandemic has affected all of us on some level. However, Galatians 6:2 teaches us to carry each other's burdens, and in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. Further, Hebrews 13:16 reminds us of our duty to others. It states, and do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices, God is pleased. So our prayer this evening, this afternoon, is that we will continue to work together to bridge that educational divide. And then we will leave here today feeling more passionate about pleasing God, because if we're aiming to please God, we will do our best to help our brothers and sisters who are less fortunate. I thank you for the opportunity to present this afternoon. And Dr. Minister, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Lawrence, as well as thank you very much to Caribbean Girls Missions of Hope. Indeed, that is very much wonderful. You know, education is something that we all need. As little as the child may be, from the moment the child comes out of the mother's womb, education begins, learning begins. That's how you teach your child good morning, thank you, respect, and all of these different things. And then after the child reaches a certain age is where you move the child into school. And not just the children alone needs the support, but the teachers themselves who are doing the job, they themselves need the support. So the impact is not just only on the students alone, but the teachers as well. And you speakers today you have done a wonderful job. I would love to see give everyone a hand, but in the emojis, we can give the clap hand in the emojis for all of our wonderful speakers today. There are two questions. I know one was answered via the chat, but I would like to ask Sharon Doctor if she can just address the question openly. Now, I know we have folks here from different parts of the world listening to us and watching us. So what may apply for a country like in the US or in Europe might not apply in a different country. So please do your research based on the questions or the response that is given to make sure that it can apply to your country. Sharon, if you can just address the question. The question was asked, how do we apply for grant to fund education?
Yeah, so thank you. And I talked a lot about funding and creating those new opportunities. So I talked about a lot, Education Can't Wait, because they have a lot of funding through their trust. So you can look on their website. They do, Education Can't Wait, for example, has 3 funding categories. They don't take unsolicited proposals for all of their categories. So the name of the website is educationcannotwait.org. That's the website. I would look for the 2022 grant application, but more importantly, what I would do is, and this is going to take some research, but I would look in the area, the country, that you want to do the activities in, look in that country and find out which of those organizations received grant funding from Education Can't Wait. Because it's not going to be an easy, like 1, 2, 3, submit a proposal, but really building those strategic partnerships with those bigger organizations. I think you would be, some organizations may be more successful by leveraging partnerships and collaborating with those organizations that are currently receiving grant funding from an example, Education Can't Wait. And I find that, and just to add, I find that with a lot of organizations. And so sometimes it's really hard for like grassroots organizations to get funding. So that's been my recommendation. And also, like, for instance, if you're in the US partnering with the business sector, the private sector, that's another way to generate funding for some educational activities.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anyone else, any of the other speakers who would like to make any additional contribution to what Sharon said? No? Okay, all right. We have another question. This question is open, so I would open it, so maybe because this is the only other question we have, it seems like you've all done such an exceptional job that no one can even ask, they can't even think of any questions, because it seems like you answered the question in your speech. So the moment you said something and they're like, question right there, and then here it is, you answer that question. Keep speaking like that. But this is from an anonymous attendee. They said, thank you for these introductions on the major importance of education for our future post-COVID. How can this impact and reach and empower, for example, the millions of children in Latin America, having had no schooling at all for 2 years now, and who can't pay for private school because of poverty? So how can this really impact the reach and the empowerment really for these young people? So I would give each speaker 2 to 3 minutes to say something on this question.
Okay, so I'll start and then pass it on. So you're correct. You know, there's still schools in Latin America, in that region, Latin America that are still closed. So I would say, you know, UNICEF. I know UNICEF has initiated this campaign. It's called Schools First, Not Last, and they have some resources available. And I would look at those resources and reports, again, like back to that research, I would look at those resources to see, okay, who's at the forefront and what are they actually doing? And I'm sure that they're going to prioritize certain areas in terms of their response and what type of response they're going to have in terms of a slow reopening or availability of resources for education. But in terms of the Latin America and the Caribbean, they are doing advocacy at this time to bring attention to that region. And you can find out more about that campaign on UNICEF website. Again, the name of it is Schools First, Not Last. I'll pass it on to my colleagues.
Okay, so Dr. Anne-Marie or Angela or Dr. Levine?
I'll take it from there. You know, it really depends on, you know, why the school is not operating. Is it the lack of teachers? Is it a lack of a building? Is it a lack of transportation? Can they not get there? But there is an organization here. It's called buildon.org. And the only reason I know about it is because my daughter is involved in it. And what they do is they take school children here in the United States and really all over the world. These children raise money and they become appointed to go to places where there are no school buildings. And they build schools with the people in that area, with the children in that area, so that there is some place for them to be housed. Reaching out to an organization such as Build On may behoove these areas, but then we'd have to get that word out to them. But I will be sure to bring this to my daughter's attention so that she can bring it to her chapter and say, perhaps we should be looking into this. Now, I know last year they didn't go to build schools because of the pandemic. This year, she's hoping to go someplace and work with children so that they have a place so that they can be educated. But aside from that, Build On also has grant money available for people who apply to it. They do distribute devices to people who don't have them. There's very many services. I don't even know all of them. And I do know that they try to publicize themselves worldwide. So organizations like that, and I'm sure there are many others, could be helpful in that arena.
Thank you very much, Dr. Armstrong. Angela?
Sorry about that. Hello.
Okay, yes.
Like Dr. Armstrong said, it depends on what, why these schools are not operating. I know, for example, in Guyana, and I do not have any resources to offer in that sense, but we as Caribbean Girls Mission of Hope can help in whatever way we can to reach out to local teachers or to start like one of our initiatives where we can present a program where we have local teachers who might not have the resources to house children, or just if they're able to do it in their homes, provide some resources for them, which is what we do with our libraries. We partner with locals who are willing to volunteer their services and get the kids back in some sort of facility. Also, if it is that it's, there are teachers available, but there's no building, or there are no teachers available because they're, where they're living, if there's no accessibility, like how can we partner with someone to make that happen for them? So, if you can send the information to us, you can put it in the chat and we can see what we can do from our end. We know Teaching Central America is an organization that lends services, they collect resources to send to Latin America and those places where their underserved communities do not have the resources that they need. So if we are able to partner with one of these organizations, which is something that we'll have to research further, as we've been focused more on the Caribbean, we can be, hopefully helpful in getting those children into schools, or at least giving you the resources to pass on to someone who can get that done.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Dr. Levine.
There's also a good starting point relative to approaching your local governments and saying to them simply, what can I do to help? What do you need? Obviously, within your own space, you may not have the resources within yourself, or you may not know persons directly who can assist, but approaching your governments, approaching some of the school leaders, and just asking a simple question, because who knows, because of this situation, persons are just there waiting for someone to knock on their door just to simply answer that question. So that will be indeed a good starting point. Just start knocking on some doors and say, what can we do to help? It may seem simple, it may seem really, really simple, but use that as a starting point, and you will realize that as you knock on that door, that solutions and strategies will actually start to flow, and then you will start to hear, well, we need help with this, we need help with that, and then I believe that the doors will be open.
Thank you.
I would be afraid to say, what do you need? How can we help?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for to each of you for answering that question. We have one more question. This is our last question before we begin to bring down the curtains. So this question is, how critical is it to teach our children competency-based education? So each speaker, I'll give you 1 minute. And I'll start with you again, Dr. Levine. How critical is it to teach our children competency-based education? And we will close with that question. Dr. Levine?
Once again, that comes down to the national curriculum framework within each country. Once again, that has to be the starting point. It's very difficult to engage education without engaging with what has been set down within a country's national educational curriculum framework. So once again, how difficult it is, there must be a starting point. It's not that difficult. The only difficulty with that, as we see, is resources. Resources is always a key issue within the educational space. Resources and funding. Once you have resources, once you have funding, once you have the educators who are keen to push that, then it can naturally be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Doctor, I'll take you next.
Thank you. I think Dr. Levine, I think that was a great response. I would also add that, you know, it also depends on the child and just their own learning style, because this is a child-centered learning approach. So in addition to looking at the school system, I would say, you know, what is in that best interest for that child? And then I would really defer to my colleague, because I am not the expert on the child curriculum. So, you know, just to be transparent in that front. But I would say, you know, if that's not even an option within, you know, the Department of Education or Ministry of Education, then where do you start? So those are the two things I would say. Agreeing with Dr. Levine in the infrastructure of the curriculum, and is this the best learning style for the child? So taking it back to the individual.
Thank you. Ambassador Angela.
I agree with our panelists so far, and I do believe that the relationship between the student, the teachers, and the families plays a very important part. The learning environment, the educational planning and delivery. You know, our children, they function in school in a different way than they function at home. So if we can get that partnership with the parents and the families, get them involved, get them deeply involved in what our children are learning. I think a lot of us as parents learned that, you know, the hard way during COVID-19, because we had no choice but to teach our own children. And that was hard. So I think that relationship and bridging that divide between the parents, the teachers, or just getting the families involved directly with the students, what they're learning, how they're learning, what they need to improve on, that daily check-in, it is important to get our children to where we want them to be.
And Dr. Armstrong, you will close us out on this Q&A section.
One of the things that we need to keep in mind about competency-based education is that if the competencies are set to ensure future success, we should follow them. The beauty of competency-based education is that each student should be allowed to demonstrate the skills, the competencies that they acquire in a way that works for them. So it does, in theory, and I'm not saying this happens in practice, but in theory, it allows students to get this information, process it the way that they need to process it, and put it back out, demonstrating their knowledge in a way that is meaningful to them. And if we can teach them that skill, they'll be set for life.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. See, I told you people, we have an excellent panel here for you today, you know. Thank you very much. So at this time, coming to give us the outcome statement, we will have Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. Ada Ukika. She is the President General for Irene Menakaya School. Dr. Ada.
Wow, what a wonderful and impressive presentations. Well-selected speakers, and hit the ball on the point. I thank you so much for the input you have been able to make into this the theme for the side event, which is utilizing education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihood, well-being, and dignity in communities. And this is a shootout from the priority team of the CSW, of the Commission on Social Development, the 60th section, which is inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihoods, well-being, and dignity for all, eradicating poverty and hunger in all its forms and dimensions to achieve the 2030 agenda. So the discussion for this side event has given us a light into what is actually taking place and what we are compelled to do in addressing situations of this present time, especially the COVID-19, which has drastically affected education in all ramifications across the world. We also feel that this theme is not only affecting the COVID is not only affecting the situation, but even before the COVID, education system in community schools, in community areas, has not been excellent. And we can attest to this by the question of the children who are dropped out of school as a result of poverty, as a result of no school availability, no teachers, and all the rest of them. But one thing we all know, that education is power, and without education, we cannot eradicate poverty. We cannot establish sustainable livelihood, well-being, and dignity for all. So education is a very important part to human development. And that is why our organizations and partners affirm that utilizing education towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 in communities will bring willingness to a machinery for not only well-being and livelihood, but a sustainable living for all humanity. We believe that education on empowerment skills, productivity, and production rate will champion lifelong well-being across community to bridge the gap towards inclusive and resilient recovery from COVID-19 for sustainable livelihood, well-being, and dignity in communities, thus accelerating the implementation of SDGs 1 and 2 and target progress in communities. Now, the SDG 1, which is the Sustainable Development Goal 1, is talking about ending poverty. And SDG 2 is saying ending, SDG 1 is talking about eradication of poverty, while SDG 2 is talking about ending hunger. The side event has highlighted, from this presentation of the speakers, has highlighted the effective strategies to eradicate poverty and hunger in all its forms and dimensions to recover better and achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development through the theme we have just digressed. Now, the outcome from this side event responded to the theme of the 60th section. It responded, of course, our focus was on the priority theme of the 60th section of the Commission on Social Development. And we noted that inclusive education on modalities for eradication of poverty and ending hunger must be made a top priority, and time is now for all to team up to solutions together. We are affirming that providing key areas for action to eradicate poverty and hunger and recover better to achieve the 2030 Agenda. We also affirm that developing integrated policy framework to recover better and achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is a necessary point in trying to address the theme for the 60th section. And when we talk about this education, we are looking at the SDG 4, which is talking about quality and inclusive education. Now, with the COVID-19, we are digressing education into virtual, digital form of education. Now, what happens in a situation where in communities where there is no availability for digital education? And we all know from this presentation and from the proceedings of the commission, which is still ongoing until next week, we all know that it's only education that can empower us to be equipped for sustainable livelihood. Because through education, if you don't have a job, you can start in something. you can be able to define yourself. You can be able to get into something, even when you don't have education. And this has been the mission of the host organization and its partners. We are focused, like for instance, the Irene Menakaya School is situated in a community in Nigeria. And one of the things is they open the doors to the less privileged to receive education at a quality and inclusive education, just like their counterparts in urban areas. Some of the school provides amenities. They try to blend the education of the vulnerable groups with those of the rich group. So they take school fees from those who can afford it and then give the vulnerable group free education in the school. With that, they acquire basic education, foundation education that has compelled them even to go to institutions that can provide them a scholarship or get them assistance. Because when they come to the school, you see that they have intelligence, they have knowledge. These are children who are ready to go to school, and they are intelligent children that, if not given education, their skills and their intellectual ability will be wasted. So what we need to do in terms of questions that have been asked, the civil societies, organizations should come together, establish school in such communities that can bring these people together, even as a non-profit, and seek international partners. Just like Sharon Doctor has mentioned about Education Can't Wait, which is an initiative of the UNICEF at the UN, and they are into communities, education in emergency situations, of which COVID-19 was part of it. So I want to thank you for your support, for your contribution, and that this section will still continue when we have to put down together every of the presentations that we have made, and then we come up with addendum on how to reach out in utilizing education further for sustainable livelihood. I thank you, and I thank Dr. Bannister for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ambassador Dr. Ada Okita. So this has brought us to the end of this wonderful session. The discussion was fruitful. I hope that everyone listening were able to grasp something that they can be able to use in their communities, in their own schools, or even in your own personal lives. So the panelists here, let me say thank you very much, Sharon Doctor. Let me say thank you very much, Her Excellency Angela Lawrence. Thank you very much, Dr. Anne-Marie Armstrong. Thank you very much, Dr. Ian S. Levine. Thank you very much to the organizations that you represent. Thank you very much to those organizations for allowing you as well you all to be here to speak on their behalf and to represent them as well. If you folks only know the level of speakers and some of the organizations that these represent, you will be in awe of yourself. I think you might even want to come and ask them to come and speak again, which we will at some point in time, you will hear from them again. So the host organization, Irene Menakaya School, and the African Cultural Production, Inc., let me say thank you very much as well to you two, as well as the Center for SDG MACBAN Arts, which is my organization that I am the president and founder for. Focusing on the SDG 4 is very vital. So thank you very much to the Commission for Social Development for setting up this 60th session so that we can have this side event as the UN and the other countries discuss matters relating to education and how we can be able to help. I'll leave you with this one saying that I grew up learning before this man died. He said this to a group of us once, and I never forget it. And I use that and I run with it. And I think about it every time. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Ponder on that. Think about it. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, my name is His Excellency Dr. Devon Bannister. I am the ambassador to the UN here in New York, Geneva, and Vienna, representing Irene Menakaya School, as well as I am the founder for MACBAN Arts and the president. And at the same time, I am your host here this evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone here, and for those of you listening to us near and far. Do enjoy the rest of your day until we meet again. Goodbye. Thank you.
And the Pro-Chancellor of Saika International University. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Well done.
All right, wonderful. Dr. Ada, please end the recording.